So this is where we got to on this guy. I've been sitting here piddling around with him, but this is where we're at in terms of how much we got done. The goal today is to finish carving this thing. I don't know whether when we get done carving whether we'll have enough time to paint, but if we don't, then what I'll do is I'll have a separate video painting this guy. One of the things I want to offer to those of you that are listening is whether you want to buy another one of these rough outs or blanks. You probably cut your own, and these are. Let me grab a ruler here real quick. There we go. So these are come out of a 2 by 2 inch block. You can see the 2 inch wide, 2 inch deep, almost 2 inch, 1 3/4, and then the height of it ends up being about 7 inches. So I ended up with a bunch more that I cut out. I've done this class 2 or 3 times. I cut out, and I ended up with 8 of these. These ones look like I got 8 of these. This is the carving. You're looking at it from the side. There's the front. There's the leg cut out. There's the big nose. There's the right side, and there's the back. I've got 8 of these, and I have 3 of these, which is what we started this video series on. There's the guy, his right side, his back, and his left. And then I've got one more left with, let me reach down and grab it. I can't reach it for her. I'm too fat. I got that one with the head separate. So I will sell each one of these for $25 plus shipping. Shipping ends up being about $10.40 something cents a UPS or USPS. So if anybody wants any of these, here's my PayPal and Venmo information. And then I just started a Ko-fi button on my videos and on my website. That if you want to just drop a few dollars in there to help me pay for more wood and filming, and I pay a fee every month for having a Zoom meetings. So paypal.me/EricOwensArt, or at Venmo, you do Venmo at EricOwensArt, and then if you want to just do it through Ko-fi, you can do it that way too. Ko-fi, I think they call it. So if you want any of those, let me know. I've got 8 of the ones with the head on. I've got 3 of the ones with the head not cut out, so it's just a block on the head. And then I've got one of these here with the head ready to insert. I've already carved it so you could fit it in there, and then you'd have to carve that. I'll leave that up there for a few seconds if any of you want to. The Ko-fi is the way you can drop in $1, $5, $10, whatever you want to drop in to help me keep this content free. I don't want to start charging for it, because then it's a hassle to keep up with it, and you have to argue with whether the payment came through or if it's taken a while or whatever. So I've had that with a few other things where back and forth, and where we're trying to ensure they got payment. So anyway, drop me an email. My email is ericowensart@gmail.com. So let me know if you want any of those, if you want more than one or whatever. One of the things I like to tell carvers is if you do one thing and you learn a little bit from that, what you should do is immediately turn around and do some more. I wanted to do a cowboy class here at our club meetings, and there's a husband and wife team in the CCA, Barb and Gerald Sears. I don't know if you've ever met any of them, but they're going out of business. They've had a rough out and carving business for 45 years. They're going out of business. And so when you look them up, Gerald and Barb Sears, you end up seeing all the stuff that they have, and they do a lot of rough outs. And so we decided as a club that they wanted me to teach a class. So I taught a class here, and I taught a class at the senior center. And we took this rough out here. We ended up with 10 of them. We took this rough out here, and when I did the carving and taught people how to do that, because a lot of them hadn't done any cowboys, you end up with a lot of different ways to get where you're going. This was the first one I did from that pattern. Here's another one I did from that pattern. Same rough out, same pattern, a little bit different. You can see this guy has his sleeves down here. This guy has his sleeves rolled up, and he's dirty, and his hands and face are sunburned because he's been out working. His pants are frayed and worn at the back and at the buttocks too. And then I did one that looks like he's about ready to go, out on the town. He's got his fancy bandana on, he's got his cuffs on, and he's got his favorite hat with the little buttons on, little dots there on his headband. And then I'm working on a fourth one because we thought we'd have about 12 people in the class. We ended up with 5, so I ended up with five more of these that I'm going to carve. Each one of them different, and each one of them different type of things that I'm carving in. This guy, his boots end up right up here, and then he ends up with his pants all rolled up. So anyway, if you're interested they do Santas and cowboys and a few other things. If you're interested in them, Gerald and Barb Sears, look them up, Google them, and it'll take you right to their website. These things run about $25. So if you wanted to get some, you got to get them before they run out. We wanted actually 14 because we thought we had a lot of people, and then glad we only got 10 of them because we didn't need that many. But if you want to do those, rough outs are a way to get done quicker. So if you got a time crunch to do a cowboy or a Santa or whatever they're doing, ordering as a rough out is an advantage because you have less wood to remove. So just as you compare these two right here, this guy's really square, and in the one with the, let me see the rough out here, and the one here, they've just got the overall shape. So you already got the hands here, you already got the boots here, you already got the hat, and the face is going to go in here somewhere. Here's your bandana. A lot of it's done for you, and you just add the final details. And so for people who don't have a lot of time, or people don't want to take a lot of time to do that, or in a time crunch, or just have problems like arthritis and issues with their hands, that's a lot quicker way to get to a finished project than if you started straight from a block of wood. So it's one of those things where it just depends on how you carve and how you want to carve. If you want to go from a block, you can do that from a block. If you want to go from one that's already been cut out, I got some of those for this project. I actually have a few more for things like you can't see it, but there's a relief cowboy back here. Just half of him is on a wanted poster. I've got several of those in different sizes. I've got Vikings and several other things that I could do. So if you want to drop me an email, let me know. I'd be glad to talk that over with you if there's some of those you want. All right, I'll shut up and we'll start carving. I took my 7 minutes of talking, so we're done. We're going to start carving. Like I said, I want to finish this guy today sometime. If we get enough time, then we're going to paint him. But if we don't, that's just the way it is. And I'll do a video on painting, so I don't have to tie up your time and mine with sitting there watching me paint. It's kind of like watching corn grow. You're just never too sure about how long it's going to take, and so sitting there watching somebody else paint may not be the best thing that you want to do with your time. But if you do, that's okay. I'll have a video showing how I paint that, and the way I paint is not going to be any different from the way I paint anything else. So I don't do a lot of birds and cowboy or birds and bears and whatever. I do a few. I don't do birds very often. But when I go to carve something like this, the painting techniques that I use are going to be the same. I'm going to use a certain color for the face. I'm going to mix colors to get the facial color. I'm going to do the shirt with 1 or 2 or 3 different colors because I want the color of the shirt, then I want the color of the highlights, then I want the color of the shadows. So when I carve, say, this particular arm, I'd paint it one color. I water my paints down pretty well. I usually put 5 or 6 to 10 drops per drop of paint in there. But if I was going to paint this, I would get out a fairly good sized brush and I'd paint it the color I wanted it after I've treated the paint. When I'm done, then I'm going to come back in here with that paint that's either a darker shade, like if I go with bright red, then I would go with something like burgundy red that's got a little darker. And so down in here in the shadows, I would put that darker color in there. And in places where it's going to highlight right in here in the wrinkles, I'd put that darker color. And then when that's all dry, I'd dry brush over it with a lighter color. And that gives me at least 3 values on that shirt. And that gives me a way to make it look a little more than just real stiff and real, I don't know what's a better word for it, but it doesn't look real. It's one color through everything is all the same color. And if you look down at the shirt you're wearing or the pants, you'll notice that your wrinkles and your highlights and the parts of it that's folded up has a different color than one color. So everything should have several values to give you the full flavor that you're looking for. So I'll show that in a video if we don't have enough time today. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time. We started on the face, and as you can see, we're obviously not done. We got a lot of room. We've got a lot of stuff going on that face. But let me get to where I want to go with the legs and with the body. So I'm just going to come in here, and I'm taking off some of these rough lines that I've got in here, carving marks where I've left sharp edges that I don't necessarily want. And I'm coming in here to smooth out some of the areas where I've left too many marks, too many wrinkles, or wrinkles that don't make sense. Like I had a big gouge right there in the middle of his leg. Well, that gouge didn't make sense with what I'm trying to achieve here with carving this. So there's a bulge here in the front. We got to account for that. When we go below that bulge, then we can smooth out some of that wood so that it shows up with that bulge where it goes. Because most men, as they start to age, and this guy's supposed to be he's kind of aged, but he's not young, but he's not real old. When we do that, I sharpened my knives the other day, but boy, it feels like it ain't been sharpened. So I'm gonna switch. I know this one is sharp. Maybe this wood is dried out. That's a little better. Anyway, when I go to do this, what I'm trying to do is give bumps where bumps belong, lumps where lumps belong, and the things on here that I want it. I don't want it to be realistic. I'm not looking for a realistic carving. It's not what I do, and I suspect most of us don't either. Or you probably be watching a video that's more geared towards realistic. Instead, you're here watching a caricature carver. And so that's what we're going to do. Put in the wrinkles at the back of the legs that we want to put in. Make sure that the wrinkles move logically. In other words, when I put the wrinkles in there, I want them run in the direction they would normally run on a pair of pants. I don't want them running sideways or up and down. I want them to be, as you can see on this leg, I got a few wrinkles there. And I'm going to put those same wrinkles over here. But when you bend your knee and look at your pants, what you're going to find out is right here at the kneecap is where you're going to have an area of stress. Folds and wrinkles usually flow away from the area of stress because when you flex, it pulls that garment across your knee tighter, which means that excess material has to go somewhere, and it shows up at the back of the leg as a wrinkle. So you flow away from the area of stress. That's not the one I wanted to grab. You flow away, so here's my knee right here. I would flow away from it with a few wrinkles. And I get a few in there, one going that way, one going that way. So flowing away from that area of stress, flip it over and do the same thing. I want these folds to be going away from that. I'll add some more folds a little bit later, but I want to show the kneecaps up there. And so I come back in here with a knife and make a few cuts. I don't need many because it's not real heavy duty cloth. Even if he's wearing jeans, it still has folds that make sense. So I'm going to put those folds wherever I can and where they're going to make sense. So I've got that kneecap pretty much outlined up here, and I've got the other stuff going away from it. And then I can take a smaller gouge. Here's a large gouge. This is the number 11. Here's a number 9. Yeah, it's 11 as well. It's just not as big. So I use this one to make smaller cuts, smaller folds. These don't have to be real big, but they're going to be a little more soft and flow away from that knee. So there's a big cut that I made, And there's some of the smaller ones. Make some out here on the outside so we can see those. Smaller cuts than what I've got in there already, and maybe that helps to clean it up. But I want wrinkles in there that are going in the right direction. So once they stress here and they bunch up in the back, they flatten out in the back, they straighten up and start to bunch up back here. And then what you want, as you go away from that knee right there, this is the back of the knee, as you go away, instead of going straight across right out from that stress, they start to even out. So instead of going out this way, they're going to go up. So you get those folds that start to go up. And I'm going to make them big because that way I want them to be softer rather than real sharp with a smaller blade. So you get them to where they flow away from that knee. And so those folds around the knee will kind of intersect with these folds back here at the buttocks, because I haven't really cut in his buttocks, his gluteus maximus. So those will just kind of flow. And they flow all the way up into where the buttocks come together. And so that's the kind of detail that we want to add to this. It's not a lot. You can get by with a lot of details, and you can get by with simple details depending on what you're doing. And so I'm trying to make these things look like they're flowing in the right direction. Some of them flow up to the leg, some of them flow across the leg. But all of that is going to give the illusion that his pants are kind of wrinkled in there with the cuts that you're making. They don't have to be 1,000 little cuts, and they don't have to be real small or real big, but they have to be looking realistically while we're making this a caricature, and we want him to be, you know, kind of goofy looking. We don't want him to look stupid, and we don't want our cuts to look like they won't make any sense. In other words, if I had a fold all the way down the back of the leg, that kind of wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, so you get rid of that. And so look, we've gone from a flat leg over here to one with a lot of wrinkles. And right in here there's some folds because you get cloth bunched up. So if you grab a smaller tool, what you can do, taking into consideration this is the bulge of the pocket, then you can come back here where the transition is between the torso and the leg, and you can add a few more curves that go the way that your folds would go. So when you sit down, right in here they bunch up. So when you stand up, they're not as pronounced as bunched up. They're going to be a little more relaxed. So just add wrinkles in there where it kind of makes sense all the way around the leg. And we're going to do that to the other side as well. I've got this line drawn right here because that's the seam of his pants. Now, I could do the seam of the pants in a lot of different ways, and one of the things we were talking about in my other classes is a tool called a punch wheel. Pull a few of them out there. Punch wheels are things that sewers use when they lay out quilts or patterns, but it's a little tool with some teeth to it. And those teeth aren't necessarily sharp, they're more like an indentation. So if I ran this down the side of his pants, I can either cut that with a tool, or I can run these punch wheels down. You get them in all kinds of different sizes. They come in handy, but I can tell you that it's easy to overdo it. You don't want stitching all over the thing. That doesn't look right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow this. This is hard to do because you got to follow the leg and you got to follow the wrinkles. When I go up here and that wrinkles, I got to turn it a little bit and then turn it back. And I've got to follow it straight for a while, and then it dips into that wrinkle. Might disappear and it might show back up here. And we've got to look at where that is going. I drew that line very carefully where I wanted it, but I'm going to take my time doing it because I may still end up in the wrong spot. But what I really want to do, and I didn't take that off very well, I want to remove that mark with my tool so that you don't see the mark anymore. What you see is the wrinkle that you're providing for this guy. And this wrinkle just runs the length of that leg. We're going to do the same stuff on the other side. And I'm just going to take a few minutes to just add some wrinkles here and try to keep them. I want to do them fairly quick because I don't want to spend all day on wrinkles. It's like watching corn grow or paint dry. I want to try to get the same rough shape I got over here. His knee is sticking out a little bit here. I want his knee sticking out over here on this other side as well, because that knee is about right there. So I want the parts where the kneecap is to flow, the folds to flow away from that kneecap. And I'm going to follow that all the way around to the back side, starting with a big tool, then I'm going to work to a smaller tool because I want to make sure that I'm adding the details I need before I add too many final details. So after you've done a few of these things, you can just go without having to worry about where the cuts are, because you know that you've done it and you've made them where they need to be. And so if it looks like I'm going in a hurry, I'm just flipping them over because I don't want to sit here and grow old making wrinkles. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to take the time, whatever time is necessary, and if I have to take an extra 20 minutes or whatever, that's the way it's going to be. But I don't get a real thrill out of doing wrinkles. Having said that, there's a book you can find. It's called Understanding. Okay, it may not be Understanding, but it's How to Draw Wrinkles and Drapery. And so it is a book that shows you how, in drawings, how folds lay on clothing, whether it's a dress, elbow, a jacket, pants, socks, whatever. What does that cloth do when you bend it? What is that? How does cloth drape on a body when you're giving it some kind of texture that we're doing right here? So on the back, I didn't do a lot of wrinkles over here on the back, so I could take time to do that. One of the things I like to do that with is what we call a soft V. Soft V is a tool that's shaped like a V, but it's rounded at the bottom so that you can see it's a soft cut. So it's a V, but it's not a sharp V. I like it because it gives me a room to do it. And that way, if it's not too sharp, it's not too hard to erase it either. If it's really sharp, like a V-tool, if you've made a mistake, you might have a hard time getting deep enough in that V-tool to take away what you need to take away. And I'm not going to bother measuring from here to here. I don't need these to be in exactly the same spot because this guy may be leaning one side and one side's a little bit higher than the other. I'm not looking for perfection. You might have heard me say this before. Perfection is the enemy of completion. In other words, if I'm looking for perfect, I'm never going to get there. I'm not perfect. There's only one thing I know that was perfect, and it wasn't me. So I was in the class that I was doing with cowboys. I'm trying to teach my students that don't look for perfection. It ain't going to happen, and you shouldn't look for it because you'll never achieve that. And you'll always find something that you want to fix about it. And so for me, I'm going to let it go at some point. And I know that took me a while to get there, as it'll take most of you the same way, because it's got to be one of those things that comes naturally. You can't force that. And when you get to the point where you look at it and say, oh, that looks pretty good, then you know you've arrived to the point, to that spot where you can carve a carving that you like. One guy says he just wants to carve a carving that's good enough for his wife to put on top of the piano, which is this place of honor in the house. And I thought that was a good thing to aim for. But you know, the guy may think he's carving, or the girl may think their carving is perfect, and somebody else doesn't feel that way. And so I've had to learn over a lifetime of doing things that what somebody thinks about it may not be what I think about it. And if those two things don't match, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it, because I am who I am, and I like what I'm doing, and I'm having fun doing it, and I shouldn't worry about what somebody else thinks too much. Yeah, if they're going to buy it, maybe, but a lot of people just, like to pick up stuff, and they say, well, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and that's wrong. Well, you know what? I don't really have to listen unless you're putting money into it, you know, and then you can buy it and you can critique it all you want. But otherwise, I'm not gonna lose a whole lot of sleep over it. Having said that, it took me a long time to get to that point because I took every criticism to heart. I'm like, I'm not good enough. I grew up in a situation when I was younger where there wasn't a whole lot of encouragement, you know, whether it was from teachers or family or ministers or whatever. It was a lot of criticism, and it's taken me a long time to get over that. I'm still critical with myself more than I should be, and my wife has been a big help at that, telling me, no, that looks fine, you know, but even she will say this needs to be fixed. And you know, every time she says that, she's absolutely right. So take your criticisms to heart, but don't lose sleep over them, because you have to be happy with it yourself. And if you're happy and no one else is, then only worry about you. And like I say, that took me a long time to get to that point. I'm comfortable now where I like what I'm doing. I wish it was better, you know, where I could sell a carving for $10,000, and I don't think that many people buy caricature carvings at that price. So if I wanted 10,000 and I never get it, I'd die disappointed. So I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about turning out the best product I can find and I can do according to me. So I'm not going to worry about too much about criticisms or complaints. All right, I'll shut up about that. Enough of that. I think I got his legs and his feet where I want. I'm gonna deepen these little notches right here at the bottom of the shoes, because I went out and sanded the bottom of these out off of my sander this morning because they had saw marks and writing all over them, marks that I'd made. And so what it does, it took away some of this notch that I wanted to keep. So I'll just deepen that a little bit, and that'll allow me to cut off that little mark right there. Same way over here. I'm going to deepen that notch. This is the end of the wood, and it's in grain, and so it wants to split up on me, so we'll leave it good. This is on the inside of the sole, so not very many people are going to see it down in here. Got the pants about where I want to. Again, up here on top of the buttocks, not a lot of detail there. I would take a small fishtail gouge and clean up a little bit. I've got some saw marks right in here. I definitely want to clean those up. I've got some split wood where I cut a little deeper on one part than another. I can go down with the grain, and I can clean all that up so that it looks like his pants really look like they're on his body instead of they're stuck there. So we've got the legs about where we want them. I need a little more bulge right in here and a little more taken off in here. So I'm going to come in here with my fishtail gouge, and I just want to nibble a little bit away. I don't need much. That ain't going to work because that wood is hard. Let's do it with a knife. So I'm going to go across the buttocks, and I want to leave a little bit of this here. So let me see if I can get that cut that I'm looking for with a bigger gouge. So I'm just going to come down here and outline that pocket with a couple of cuts around it. That'll help make it round and help me remove a little bit of that. Yeah, that looks like where I'm wanting. So it'll help me remove a little bit of that wood. I'll deepen it a little bit. One more cut there. I'm going to come back in with that smaller gouge that I had and just make it look a little bit better. So I want that cut to come all the way down through his legs. Helps me clean out that wood that's back in here that's hard to get to. I could come in here with a V-tool. Excuse me. I had me some pork rinds for lunch, and now they won't make me cough. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm going to use this little gouge to get back in here and do a little bit more clean out. I won't want a whole lot of sharp lines. I want them to be soft, so I don't want to cut real deeply and leave that edge too sharp. And then when I get up here, I can go back to the big gouge and take some of those little marks off with the big tool. Smooth it out a little bit. I think we're just about to the point where we got his pocket here bulging with his hand in there. I'm going to leave a little bit of skin right here to show that his hand's not fully jammed down into his pockets. And this one, I think we're gonna make the cuff, because the cuff here matches that cuff over here. and so we don't want to leave any hand there. So make that one just a little bit different. As I said last time we were here a couple weeks ago, this wood is starting to split right there. I may end up having to glue it. I don't really want to glue it because then that gives me a glue line that's hard to paint over. But you see that, see if I can get, you can see that cut right there. So something I've just got to navigate around it and figure out what I want to do with it. All right, that took us a half an hour to finish those legs. That is okay. Again, along the way, take a little brush, a little grout brush that I bought from the store for a couple of bucks. I just want to brush everything I can get off of there, whether it's a fuzzy or whatever it is. I'm just going to remove the stuff I don't need. And these are all those little fuzzies that we get down in the corner, because it's really hard to do that. And we talk about chasing fuzzies, and that is not the easiest thing to do, because like right in here we got a lot of fuzzies back in there. And so there's a couple of tools that I like to use. One of them, I picked this tip up from Pat Moore from the Moore Roughouts. She uses a nail cuticle tool. It's beveled at both ends. It's made of birch, so it's harder than basswood. And what it does is allow you to get down here in the little spots and burnish the wood out where you can get those little fuzzies out of there. And since it's harder than basswood, it should be easier to remove that. Sometimes that won't work though. Sometimes you're like, well, that's down too far, or it's too boogered up, or whatever. So there's a little tool I made after being told by Cleve Taylor. Cleve Taylor's an old friend of mine, and he's a good carver. One of the old CCA guys. Is a little dowel with a finishing nail in there. So the nail doesn't have to be that sharp, but it's got to be able to get down in there. So what it'll do is the end of that tool being metal, it'll really clean out that spot in there. I don't know if you can see the difference from earlier, but I went down through here and I went up through here, and if I do it right, I can clean it all out and make it look a little bit better, and it actually provides a little bit of a shadow back there. Way back in there, it looks like the shirt keeps going because of that shadow. It's the same thing down here. It looks like it goes underneath, and it looks like I spent a lot of time cutting back in there, and I really didn't. Just another little tip and tool that you can use to clean that out. All right, we started on, let me get some of these tools out of the way because we won't be using all of these. So give me a second or two to put them back. A couple of them I got to lay off to the side because they need sharpening. I did sharpen the other day, but then I spent several hours yesterday carving and a few more hours out carving with friends of mine, and we had a good time, but every once in a while you got to sharpen your stuff. People say about every 15 to 30 minutes, and I don't find that to be necessarily a hard and fast rule. I do it when it needs it. And it might be 30 minutes today, and it might be an hour tomorrow, it might be 5 minutes the day after. And I got enough tools where I got 4 or 5 tools at 4 or 5 knives at any one time that I can go to, so I don't have to stop and sharpen all the time. I don't like doing that. I like carving. That's what I got into to carve. If I wanted to be a sharpener, I'd have went and learned how to sharpen and made a living at it. But I like carving, so that's what I want to do. So between those two tools, I can get down in those little corners and clean all that out. We started working on his arm. This is one of the tools I like to do that with. This is a file. It's a number 9, and it's a fairly big size tool. It's got to be 3/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 inch across. Before I throw out numbers, I should probably measure that. It is about, it's 1/2 inch, which would be how many millimeters? Should be about 12 millimeters, roughly. I'm not an expert on the metric system. But anyway, what I like to do with this big tool is make long marks on the long folds on the shirt. So if you'll notice, when you look at a shirt, anatomy lesson here for you, You bend your elbow, well, your cloth all bunches up right there. It doesn't bunch on the back of the elbow, but above and below that. And then above that, instead of going straight across this way, they start to go up. And here's another pinch point right here. So where your sleeve comes in and sews to the body, you'll have some marks going toward that. So as my shirt does that, I've got them coming from my right from my right to my left, and they fold in there. Before I do that, I like to just give this thing some character, and so I'm going to give it some shape. I'm making these long cuts away from the elbow because that's the way they flow. If you're not really sure about how this flows, rather than buying a book that might cost you a lot and you don't spend a lot, you don't use it a lot, take some pictures, Google it, Google wrinkles on a man's shirt, something like that, or take some pictures, grab your significant other or one of your children or grandchildren, neighbors or whatever, to model for you. And take a few pictures, keep it on your phone, so that way you've got something to look at close up and far away. But you'll see some of these wrinkles on that shirt. Okay, I've got him with some big shoulders. I don't really need big shoulders on this guy because I made him kind of skinny everywhere else. So I'm going to thin down this shoulder right here. I got a number 3 fishtail gouge from Stubai. I like this. I've had it for a long time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up along the chest. If you have anything to say, I'll be glad to answer questions for you. I don't see anything in the chat, so if you want to ask a question, unmute yourself if you're not already unmuted, and I'll try to answer questions while I carve. I got friends of mine that say they can't carve and talk at the same time, and I don't have any problem doing that. I can talk, eat, carve, and all kinds of stuff at the same time. Sometimes that's not a good thing. Thin that shoulder down a little bit, still not where I need to be down here, but I can come from the outside and thin that with that fishtail gouge and thin that shoulder down just a little bit more, because he's kind of a goofy fella, so he's not built like Schwarzenegger. He's got some thin limbs. So take a little bit off the back and a little bit off the front. We give him a hump. We'll take that off too. This fishtail gouge works really well. And then I would come back with this gouge and I would just kind of shape between the arms, because that shirt has wrinkles back here too. Not as many, because it's puffy back there and loose. So you don't have a lot of real tight folds and wrinkles back there. So I'm just digging out. I'll come back here and clean it out a little bit, make it a little bit smoother, because I ended up with a lot more wrinkles than I want. But I want to leave some back there, and I want to take some out, so I can smooth that out. Some of this will be smoothed out later when we finish. And I'm trimming off the hump in his back. You know, as I get older, I find myself, I walk past a store with a door in it, you know, glass front, and I see myself hunched over, and I immediately pull up a little bit, and I don't want myself to look like I'm 200 years old and can't walk upright. But anyway, we're just thinning those arms again down a little bit more, kind of working on the arms together and the back. Alright, back to this arm I was working on earlier. I got a few wrinkles here I want to pull in. Be careful of which way you want to go, because if you go one way, it'll split on you, and if you go another way, it'll carve perfectly. You gotta be careful how that works, and gotta be careful that you know which way it's supposed to go. Alright, let's switch over to that other arm. Same thing we did earlier. got to look at the shoulders. You notice the shoulders have a little bit more of a dip over here. So I'm going to make that one match over here just by taking off a little bit more. Not much, but I want the shoulders to look close. They don't have to look perfectly, because when two people are standing there, they don't have the same slouch, they don't have the same lift of their shoulders or their slump. So don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about it being a mirror symmetry. Meaning if you were to split this thing down the middle, everything to the right and the left would be perfectly matched up. It ain't. And it shouldn't be, because none of us are that way. And if we are, there's very few of us. I don't know that I've seen mirror symmetrical people even among twins. So alright, and a few more wrinkles. That'll help me remove those lines I don't necessarily want on there. Some of these wrinkles are going to, by reality, be short. So they only go part way across the sleeve or the leg. And the others run the full length of it. So you got to be careful in adding those in the right spot, because the long ones are usually more vertical than the horizontal ones. Horizontal ones are usually shorter for the most part. There are exceptions to almost every rule. And so make sure when you're looking at that, take a look at your reference pictures, take a look at your internet or whatever you got to use as a reference, and make sure that the things you're putting in there make sense. I've had a lot of carvers over the year when we talk about what they're doing. When we talk about cowboys, for instance, in their pants, and you look at these pants, they're wrinkled here because they're just pants and cloth. But then when you get down here, they have them real long. And they're real long because when they get on the horse and they ride up and their knee bends, this cloth rides up. And you don't want it riding up too far, because then your bare leg is right up against the leather as you're riding, and it's very uncomfortable. And so when we do wrinkles, we want to make sure they make sense. We want to make sure they connect. We want to make sure they are following the contour of the body. His leg is not going this way, his leg is going that way, and so the folds do the same way. So here is that as well. I want to come in here. I've got a pointed elbow sticking out over here. Can I get a pointed elbow out of there? I sure can. I got room to do that. So I want to make sure that everything I'm doing it makes sense. Having said that, I've seen carving. My good friend Ryan is good about having the forehead be almost as long as the rest of the face, or the chin. And so when we go to look at symmetry, we don't have to follow it perfectly, but we got to follow it so it makes sense. And follow that around as you do that. Okay, I'm looking pretty good. So I got to continue adding wrinkles over here, away from the elbow. The back of the elbow has some coming away from it. Up and down. So we did the up ones. Now we'll do the down ones, because that's the way the wood's running. If I tried to carve up on this arm, if I tried to carve up on that arm, the grain is running like this. So if I carved up into that, I'd hit that grain and I would be going up here. When I'm doing the grain's running this way. When I come across it, the top is cut off and the bottom is left in place. So I got to take into consideration, where are those wrinkles running? Where am I going to cut them? Because if I cut them in the wrong spot, it might be unrecoverable. It might be one of those things you have to add that doggone quick wood that some of us have to use occasionally, because we just made a mistake and now we got to fix it. So reading the grain is important, and understanding which way folds flow is important too. So you can't do too much research on that, because otherwise you're just kind of doing that. So what they'll do, not knowing how wrinkles flow, they'll have a cut here and a cut there and a cut over here and a cut down here and a cut down here, and say, oh, what do you think? Well, I'm going, well, folds usually connect to something. And when you have one cut here and one cut there and one cut there, it doesn't tie it together. So you've got to be sure that they tie in together and make sense for what you're doing. I need to take off a little bit of wood down here in this corner, because it looks like it's just glued together, and I want them to look like the shirt goes up under the arm. Here we go, leaving fuzzies again. Cut those out right there. Fuzzies are gone. Take the back out. I want to make that sleeve looks like the cloth goes up under the sleeve rather than just lays on top of it. So I cut an indentation back in there to show the shadow of where the shirt goes. Same thing up here. I don't need to go up very far on here, but I do need a little bit. And so I take out that little sliver, bring the knife out a bit more as I come out, and that tip matches where that part right there is. So that gives me some more wrinkles and shadows back here. That's one of the hardest things to carve, other than animal fur, which can easily be overdone on a bird or a bear or even a snake, is doing the shadows and doing the indentations and the parts that we want to do on a cloth. Because we put on a shirt, we don't really pay attention to it. We look in the mirror to see if it looks good, and if we look good, we head out on the town. But we sometimes don't memorize what we're doing. We don't see it for what it is. Go out on the town, no big deal. We look okay, but we're not aware of what we always do. So we've got to make sure that when we go to recreate that in wood, that we're doing it right. All right, any questions so far? I've been at it for 45 minutes. Any questions to this point? Something I didn't cover well you want me to expound a little bit more on? Cleaning up some of these marker lines that I have on here. They'll show up depending on what the color of the pants are. They might show up later, and I don't want them to do that. Let's finish this belt right here. I need a small V. Where's my V tool? It'll work right there. So you've got a belt buckle right here. It's kind of oversized. That's okay. It's might be the only one this fella can have. That fella has. He don't got a lot of money for wardrobe. Or he's like Einstein. He only wants to wear one kind. I've heard Einstein wore just about every day a brown suit with a white shirt, because he figures if the last time I spend figuring out my clothes, that's more time I can get figuring out my mathematical issues. So personally, I like a little variety. I don't want to wear the same shirt, pants, underwear, socks, and whatever every day, but that's just me. All I'm doing is giving the indentation to this belt, taking off the middle part of the belt, because that's a metal piece that goes around that leather. Be careful, I couldn't tell you how many belt buckles I've screwed up, whether I'm carving it or painting it. And then I'm going to take a tip of a knife, and I just want to cut in the middle part. So I want to take a little bit of that leather out to make that clasp stick up. So I'm going to go to the corners, take off a little bit of that in that corner, a little bit of this in this corner. I want to carve a little bit up in here, and I want to carve a little bit back in here. And now what I've done is I put that belt in front of that leather. Sometimes I'll take the leather and put a little tongue hanging off here because his belt's too big and the other part just keeps coming loose from his belt loop. That's hard to do, and if you get it on there, it will want to come off a lot. So you got to get it on there. You got to then put some product over it, like some cyanoacrylate glue, and harden it. So you've got to put that stuff on there, and it makes it really, really hard so it doesn't break off all the time. But then the problem is cyanoacrylate, CA glue, hardens glossy. And so if you want to do that and you don't want it to be glossy looking, then there's a product called Dull Coat that Testers makes. You can find it in a lot of different places. I think Michael's has it, and I think the hobby stores like, we have a thing called Hobby Town here in town, and they sell stuff for modelers. So people that do RC cars or trains or whatever, they'll have a lot of those little products that you need. And you can buy it from them rather than having to go to 4 stores to find it at Walmart and Freddy's and whatever. You go to one store and you find it. Our little Hobby Town seems to have it, what I need for that. Okay, cut off part of that belt when I was doing that shirt, so I'll have to come back later and fix it, but now that I know how, I'm not a big deal. Trim this shirt a little bit. I didn't get enough wrinkles over here on this shirt, so we'll add a few more. Go off of there. There we go. Okay, we're probably just about finished with the shirt. I need to add a few more little wrinkles in the corner right here. Now we've made this to where the arms are stuck to the body. We didn't make it where the arms are separated. We could have. We could have if we wanted to dig down in there and remove that thing in there. It's a harder thing to do because once you get down below a certain point, the wood starts to disagree with you sometimes, and it's hard to get in there by the angle. So I can come in here and make a couple cuts here and a couple cuts there, and a couple here and a couple back here. But once it gets all the way through, now I have to get my knife in there, and some of this wood is running in a way that I don't like the way it runs. So I have to get in there and fiddle around with it. We've got a bow tie here that we're going to do on him. I'm going to redo it, redraw it. We'll make this thing fairly large so that it's obvious. Bow tie. His shirt comes in here. We're going to try to give him a little bit of a neck. So the shirt comes a little bit of in here, and then the rest of the shirt comes around here. Depending on what we can do, how much skill we have, we might be able to get him a neat looking shirt, but we don't know yet. So that's the bottom and the top of the shirt goes up to here. So what I want to do first is take a V-tool and outline that bow tie. And I'm going to outline it a little bigger than I want, so I'm going to stay outside the lines. Because I can always make it smaller, I can't make it any bigger once I make that cut. Because there's just no way of recreating wood on the body there. Okay, I did the outline of the bow tie. I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a stop cut right on that groove that I made. Stop cut, stop cut. I got 6 cuts to make. Stop cut, stop cut, stop cut, and stop cut. And then I'm just going to come in with my knife and take off the sliver around just about every bit of that bow tie, just to relieve it from the background wood. I want it to stick out a little bit so I got room to play with it. Tommy wanted me to do the bow tie, and then she didn't show up. We were going to do suspenders on him too, but I don't know we got enough room to do that. So I've drawn my line for my wood, for my collar of my shirt. I'm doing the top line first. I'll do the bottom line later. I want to do this top line, get it in, and then see if I've got room, because it's a tight squeeze in here. See if I got room to get his neck sticking out of his head. Well, we'd have to stick it out of his head. I don't know that it'd go anywhere else. If we tried to put that neck somewhere else, we might be in trouble. Okay, I'm going to stop cut that line around because I'm going to cut up to it. Stay right in that groove with the sharp part of your knife. Where am I going? There. And then I want to cut up to it. So I'm going to take this fishtail gouge and I want to reverse it. Instead of cutting it this way, I want to flip my knife over and do it that way, because that way it'll push the knife down into the wood instead of up at the top where the collar goes. And I don't need to take off a lot here. It's a lay flat collar kind of. So I don't need to take off a lot. I just need to take off enough so it looks like it's going under it. Okay. So I got that collar outlined a little bit. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to get enough. I mean, maybe we can. That's at the top, so maybe we can. Let's try it. I'm going to have a thin collar. I don't want it to be real thick. It's going to go over the top of the arm. Connect right there to the body. Follow that line around. It may look... All right. We got a good start to it. Let's do that same thing where we do this stop cut. Stay in that new groove that we created. Make that stop cut. My lines are not exactly straight, so I'm a little bit off a bit, but this carving, this type of carving lends itself to not being perfect. Again, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to make it work. And then now what I want to do is come back. I'm going to use a smaller gouge, smaller V-tool, or smaller fishtail gouge, just to come up there. I don't want to take off a lot of wood. So I'm going to use a smaller one. It'll get me where I need to go. I hope. Cut off of that. A little bit there to cut off. Alright, we got a little collar, so now what I'm going to do, I made that stop cut earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start nibbling away above that collar. What I'm going to try to do is get from the top of that collar, right here, up. I want to try to remove as much as I can. And I've got to sit here and fiddle with it because I cut and I couldn't see it and I didn't get that line as straight as I wanted. So I want two parallel lines, one here and one here, bottom of the collar, top of the collar. And the top of the collar I want to go up. So I made those stop cuts. I'm going up and I'm going to go down as well. So here we'll separate the collar from the rest of it. And I'll come back here and get a little bit more and then come up and cut more off for the neck. So you can see where I'm trying to get a neck in there. A lot of that wood's going to go away, but I'm trying to get that neck in there. So the first thing I want to do is separate the collar with that stop cut I made earlier. Because if I cut this one, I can go back and cut below. If I cut this one and then I made it too thin right here, I wouldn't be able to get it out of there. So I'll take it off of the place where I got more wood, which is the top of the neck, top of the collar rather. Go all the way around so I know what kind of room I got to play with. Okay, got to be real careful. This piece will come off if I don't. So I'm going to make a deep, sharp, strong stop cut so that it keeps it from flying off. Could easily do that. Go back in here and make another cut along that line. And you may have to do this 2 or 3 times. Margaret Thatcher, the British Prime Minister in the early 80s, had a quote that says, you know, to win a battle, sometimes you have to fight it 2 or 3 times. And this is one of those things where you got to come back because you got a narrow area you're working with, and it may not work perfectly the first time. But I've gone around and I've separated it now. So now I'm going to take that up to the neck. I'm not taking much off the head part, but I'm just going up to the neck where I can separate that out. and I can get that neck to kind of come out. I'm starting in on the busy part of my season. This is when we start doing shows, and I'm looking at times that we're doing things and how much time I spend doing this Zoom thing, and I don't know whether I'm going to have a lot of time to contribute to this, because I've got to come up with a project, practice it a little bit, make a few so we can look at them, and then show how to do it in class or in Zoom class. I'm not sure how well it's going to work later. I'm hoping that I'll be able to squeeze off enough time, but if not, I'll let y'all know. We don't have many people showing up, and I think what's happening is people are just waiting for the YouTube channel's video to come out, which makes sense. If you don't have to be here during this time, you can wait for the YouTube and then fast forward past what you want to do. So it may be that I just turn all this into a YouTube video rather than a Zoom class and see how it goes. I don't want to give it up, but I may not have a choice with my schedule. So just to let you know, we'll see what we can do to make it work. But I get busy about this time of the year because I don't do any shows from January to April. Then I do one in April. Sometimes I have one in May, depending on whether they run that way. And then I have classes and shows from June all the way through December. So it would be one thing if all I did was carve the same thing, but I'm always creating new projects and new ideas so that I can bring my customers new stuff. All right, I've cut that in again. I'm going to relieve it again. The problem is my neck collar is getting smaller and smaller the more I cut. I'm trying to make the neck smaller, but this wood is, this particular piece is kind of getting, I don't want to say pitchy, but it's getting where it's wanting to split on me. So
when you get a minute, Eric, would you kind of show that to the camera so I can see that upper portion of the collar?
I'm trying to make that neck a lot smaller. And if I get it small enough, I'll be able to retool that collar, because the collar is real thin. Okay. So if I can get a lot of this stuff out of here, I may be able to get more out of there. I'm trying to stay away from it and carve down and up rather than straight in. But it doesn't want to work with me today. I think it's taking a Wednesday and saying, you know, I need to do my way today. So anyway, all I'm doing is getting back in there and digging out and then taking out the stuff above it. So I dig out down here by the collar, curve, and go up to the neck so that I can get a, what is a song by the Ramones from the 70s, Pencil Neck Geek? Does anybody remember that song? Am I giving away my age now? Anyway, they had a song, he's just a pencil neck geek. I'm trying to make him look like that. And I think what I'm going to have to do is see that collar, how it spreads out over here. I think I'm going to end up having to, I don't know, we'll figure something out. I mean, give me some time to think. Thanks for your question, Dave. I don't know that I answered it very well, did I?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. All right, let me see. Let me try something. That one's going to be too big, but it'll be just right for down here. I'm going to see if I can't reshape that collar. So that's what you see about carving. Even with a project that I've done several of, and I came up with myself and drew it and whatever, There's still things that just don't go perfectly. Still stuff that just doesn't want to work with you. And that's just the way it is. You're working with an imperfect type of material. If I was working with clay, I'd just, take it out and do it again. But once I put the tool to the wood here, I'm kind of committed, and sometimes my commitment's stronger than the wood is. See what I'm doing right here? Trying to get his neck out right there, but it's leaving this high and dry. So let me see if I trim that back a little bit. Maybe I'll flatten it and it'll look better. Not sure. The great thing about this is if you do this and this head gets all screwed up, you can cut that off and put another head in. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to take the body and the head and add a dowel to this and dowel to that, because if you've cut that head off, you have it here, but you've got to drill down in there. So you don't necessarily have to add a dowel if you know how to do that, but on your bandsaw and on your drill press, that's what you'd have to do. This wood up here at the top is really, really dry. It ain't working with me at all. Keeps splitting off. I think it was my tools weren't sharp, but when I do it with another tool, it's the same way. So we'll try it with a knife. Sorry, I'm off the camera. I can smooth it out with the knife because it allows me to get it at a different angle, but it's still kind of goofy wood here. I could put water on it, then I got to wait a while. All right. I think I might be able to do it, maybe. Go back to a smaller V tool. What I want to try to do now is deepen the top of the collar so that I can take off, so that I can get that neck where I need it to go. See, that's what I'm looking for, is trying to get that collar to look like that, a little better. I'm trying. The wood isn't doing me any good. I think it's because this wood I cut out probably 3 years ago, maybe 4. I cut out, I don't know, 20 of these because I had 5 people that said they wanted to take the class and several others that were thinking about it. And then when I got over there to teach that class, everybody that was wanting to carve it ended up dropping out of the class for one reason or another. Sickness, cost, whatever. So I ended up with a bunch of pieces that they've been sitting in a garage for 5 years, and so they kind of dry out. Idaho's fairly dry weather. We get on average about 12 inches of rain a year, 12 inches of water, and a good portion of that is in snow that gets captured by the reservoirs we have. But the environment is fairly dry. So anything that's left out has a tendency to dry out. Can you see that neck and that collar there? Hopefully. He ain't got much of a neck. And the collar, I think by the time we buff it out and clean it and use some cleanup tools on it, some smaller tools, I can get in there without this big knife that I'm using. And I would do it, but it's tedious, and so I'd be sitting here for an hour and a half or whatever trying to get all those little details out. Now I want to come up from the bottom and get that collar. Get him off of there, right there. All right, anyway, I spent enough time on that collar. You know where I'm going, so you can piddle around with that and fix yours or do whatever collar you want to do. What I want to work on now is I want to see if we can get that face finished. We got about a little less than an hour. So we know we're going to make him halfway bald, so we've got the hair up here. So we're going to draw a little bit more. Hair starts on a man about halfway down the ear. So I'm going to follow that down to the, no, not quite to the bottom of the neck, but to the nape of it anyway. His hair will look like that. Okay. We've got part of a face done. Great big old ears on this fella. And so what we've got is eye sockets that we got to put in, smile lines, and then a chin and a mouth. So smile lines on your face, a man's face is nose, a women's are a little bit different slightly. We look at the top of the bridge of the nose and the bottom of the nose. A third of the way down starts the crook, and another third of the way down starts the nares. What that means is that this right here is the round part. Can you see? I guess you guys can't see that, can you? Let me get a marker. If I'm having a hard time seeing it, I bet you are too. And I gotta find a marker. Where you at? Over here. Yep, there we go. So about halfway down his ears, we've got a mark right there for his hair. And a mark right there, and we'll connect those two lines. So about a third of the way down is the nares, and about another third of the way down is where the slopes in. So what we're going to do is when we put the nares there, they're the rounded part of the nose, where the nostrils are. That right there is where your laugh line starts. Starts right above that. If you don't believe me, look at anybody who has any kind of smile line. If it's normal, not laughing, not smiling, whatever, these lines come straight down. If he's laughing, they come up here because it pulls up the mouth muscles. They bunch up here against the cheekbones, comes up here, and then it rounds out like this instead of straight down. We're going to do this because we want it to be relatively straight. I'm going to come back in here with a tool that I use a lot on the eye socket. So this is the outside part of the eye socket. We've already got that in. The zygomatic arch, which is that arch in your temple that your glasses sit in, sits right in there on top of that glass. We're gonna carry that all the way through the zygomatic arch, because the head of the shape of the head is the diamond. It's pointed up here and it's pointed down here. So we got to make sure that the cheekbones right here are the farthest thing out of the head. So the head comes down to the cheekbones and then down to the jaw. Out to the cheekbones and down to the jaw. We've got a fairly large eye socket in there, and that's okay. We don't need a real small one, but we are going to deepen it just a little bit. We've got a heavy brow on him. We can take a little bit of that off when we go to do this, because we're going to indent down here in the tear duct, and we're going to round up here to make him look like he's not quite so angry, because he looked like he was just with that eyebrow ridge, he looked like he was fairly angry. So I'm going to take this, curve down to that tear duct. That's that's the smaller part, the deepest part of the eye. So if you take your eyeball and you put that pencil right there where it's touching the tear duct, and somebody looks at it from the side, you can't see that. You cannot see that piece of lead down in there. You can't see the point of the eye. So that's the deepest part of the face. For the most part, I always almost always draw a straight line, straight from the tear duct. It gives me a good reference to look at, because what I don't want is eyes that are crooked. So if these lines are straight, then I'm good to build from there. We're gonna make a simple eye. It's gonna come up, arch, and come back down. In other words, it's going to go up for a third of the eye, round over, and in the last third it's going to come out to the edge. So we go up 1/3 here, round over, come down here. We'll give them a couple of lines there. Same way here, we go up. Not sure why that piece of wood's there. We go up, round over, come down to the corners. That gives us room above here to get a good eyebrow and a good eyelid as well. All right, so drawing a few more things. Well, maybe we don't. Maybe we got it all. Somewhere around in here is a cheekbone. Yep, we got what we need. Okay, I'm going to take a small V tool. Small. I call this a wee V. It is really, really tiny. Into the camera. You can see how little that thing is. It's about a 45-degree angle, although I don't think that makes a dang bit of difference, because if it ain't small enough, it ain't going to do what we want. I'm going to start out here on the eye, and I'm going to go straight across that bottom line. Don't bury the ear of your tool. If the corners of that tool get buried under that wood, they'll just split that wood out, and you got to start all over. I want that little mark right there on the eye. I want to draw across the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to draw across the bottom, keeping careful not to bury the ears of that tool. So now I got two straight lines. This one's a little bit bigger. No big deal. Two eyes do not have to be perfectly the same size. You want them on the same level. You want them on the same plane. You don't want them necessarily always be the same size, because then there's no interest to it. When he's got two eyes looking the same size, looking the same direction, it's just a guy standing there or a girl standing there with no expression and no animation to them. I'm going to now come across from the tear duct, go up and come back down. And I come down to where that flat part meets. So the lines have met on the inside right here for the inner corner, right here, and the lines have met out here for the outer corner. And the eyes go all the way out almost to the center, almost to the edge of the skull. Looking at the size of eyes, when characters we don't really care, but essentially when you look at the size of an eye should be 1/5 of the way across the head. So you should have one eye here width, one eye width from here to here, one eye width from here to ear, one eye width from here to ear to here, one other eye width to here, and another eye width to here. That's a general anatomy number that we can follow and keep them roughly the same size. We do not have to do that though. I've seen carvings where the eyes are huge. I mean, just huge. And they looked okay because it was done right. So now we've got two eye lines. Helps if I know where my camera is. Okay, so I've cut those other lines up. What I want to do now, close up my pen before it dries out. What I want to do now is take a small tool, small knife. I like this one because it's real small. It's only about 1.25 inches. I can do it with another one, but I'm going to do this one. I always start with the hardest eye. The hardest eye to do for me, because I'm right-handed, is left. So if I'm doing my carving on the right eye, it's all right here. I can see it. When it's upside down, because I can't carve this way because I hit the nose. Turn it upside down, and I'm going to start here. Now I'm upside down, and what that does is that means whatever I carve here, when I get over to here, I can see it right side up, and it's easy to match. Whatever I carve over here, it's really hard to match over here because I'm upside down. So do the upside down one first. It's the hardest one. I'm going to start right in the corner where the tear duct is, and I want to make a deep indentation with that knife. I want it to stick out of there because that's the deepest part of the eye. And as I go across the bottom, I pull the knife out to where by the time I get to the end, it's just barely touching. But it comes to that point of those two lines. I'm going to start right here in the middle, or the tear duct, go up. And if you're not very comfortable with it, don't try to turn that corner. Pull that knife out and then come out here at a different angle and come out and do it that way. Because if you try to turn and your knife isn't sharp enough, you'll cut out a big swath of that eye. You don't want that. Okay, starting at the bottom, I'm going to take off that little sliver at the bottom because I want that eye to be rounded. It's got to be rounded from the outside to the inside, and it's got to be rounded from top to bottom. So taking that out makes it look like it's rounded. Take this corner out right here, just a little chip. I have an entire series of videos on carving eyes. Go watch them if you're a little bit nervous about this, because I'm going through it fairly quickly. I want to take a sliver out up to the top third, and I want to take another sliver out to the top third on the outside of the eye. And then way out here on the outside, I'm going to take off that triangle just like I did on the inside. Any little bit you got left in there, you can cut it off. And so now I've got one eye carved in there. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I've cut across here. I'm going to start at the tear duct, go up to the top. If my knife is flexible enough, and this one is, I can cut that top corner and come to the bottom. Then I'm going to come in here straight up, and I am carving right here the bottom portion of that eye. And I did not cut that all the way through the first time, so we'll cut it off again. So we cut off that there to round it. We cut off the corner to round that. We take off a sliver along the top of the eye, and we take off the outside corner. This is to me, it's one of the easiest eyes to do. Now, if you want your guy winking, if you want your guy growling, snarling, angry, that's a whole different eye. But these two eyes are relatively simple. When I'm done with that, I am going to take this small V, the wee V that I had, and I'm going to start either on the outside or the inside, and I'm going to make an eyelid. Go up, stay about the same length away from your previous cut. Keep your ears of the wood out, ears of the tool out, and he's now got an eyelid there. I'll deepen that with a tool, but here's the other one. Go up, keep the ears up above the wood, up, and curve down. To make that eyelid look better, I'm going to lay it flat. I'm going to lay the knife flat, and I'm going to go right up into that cut, right up into the skull. Follow that line all the way around, and then I'm going to come above that and take a sliver off. What I'm doing is indenting that eyebrow, that eyelid around the eye. See that cut right there? That's what I wanted to do. And then I'm coming out here to the edge of the eye where the corner of the eye is, and making a couple of cuts out here because he's smiled a few times and he has a few smile lines. You can make them a little bit wigglier, smaller if you want. A few more up here, it's up to you. The more he's got, the more he smiled. Okay, so I'm going to lay it down flat, follow all the way around that cut there. Come back here, lay it flat, and take off that sliver. You're indenting that eye lid into that eye. A few more wrinkles out here. Let me hide the background, maybe it'll show up better. Okay, but I haven't done the nose yet. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to cut off the corners of the nose. I've already done that. There's one corner. I need a little bit more over here. So I'm going to take that knife, a bigger knife. Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to take a small gouge. That's not a gouge, that's a V-tool. Where's my small gouge at? Right there. This one. What I want to do is right above that nostril. I got a third, 1, 2, between the nostril and the bulge of the skull. I want to carve in and then up to that bridge of the nose. So all I'm doing is shaping the nose, giving it a little bit of shape right above the nares. Do the same thing here, right above the nares, go in and curve and go to the bridge of the nose. Come back and make another cut closer to the face so that you're separating that nose from the face. Okay, We've got some bulging things right here. We'll take those off, slide the knife across them. I don't need sharp bulges on the edge of the face unless I'm really making him old. And then we do that by wrinkles and not by humps. All right. Okay. We're going to shape the mouth mound. Go right here, right above the nares. In. Follow that line out here that we got cut in. Make that cut. So this is where I cut right here. So now I'm going to reverse and I'm going to undercut that up to the nose and then turn into the nose so that I can cut off that part. And that's half of a smile on that face. If I wanted to make it come out a little bit more, this guy's, we said we were going to keep him young, but I think the more I carve him, the older he gets, the more he's starting to look like me. Okay, same way, except I'm just going to do it backwards. So start from the bottom, go up to the top. I could have done it either way, but that's the easiest way to do it. For those of you that haven't carved, another easy way to do it is stick it in there and then pull it out, but you'll have a tendency to miss. Come up here, carve up to the nose, cut that off. And now we're starting to look round on his mouth. And we got enough room for a chin. So what we want to do is we want to thin the head down. So right under the ear, the jaw starts right at the bottom of the ear, goes down and then curves out to the point out here. The mandible, this is the lower mandible, has a curve right about right here, defines the jawline. Some people have a strong one, some people don't, but it comes in right there. So we start right here and it comes down. If you can feel that, feel right at the bottom of your ear and you'll feel that bone right here. And it kind of tends to curve. So what that means is that back here, this is part of the head that we've got to remove too. So what I do, it helps if you have a big U-gouge. I use one of those like this. This thing is fairly good size. It's almost 1 inch across. What I'll do is right below that ear and right before that hairline, I'm just going to make a couple of deep cuts down to the neck. And that's going to help me define the jawline. Come across the back of the head at the bottom of it, and you can carry that all the way over to the neck. So see what we've done? We've given him a little bit of structure there, but not completely because we've got to do it here. But we've done it at the back of the head. And now with the knife, I'm going to come back in here and go straight under that jaw. Just trying to make him look like his face is kind of indented there. So I can come back up here when I do the sideburn, make that cut and that cut. And I can take that wood off, and now your ear, which for most of us the earlobe is separated at the bottom of the ear, it's not attached to your head, it dangles. As you get older, the more you wear things in your ears like earrings or whatever, it has a tendency to pull it a little bit more, but that's okay. That adds to the character of the carving we're getting to. So we brought his jaw in. See how we brought that jaw in, sorry. Whatever we did here, we got to do over here. So see, if you see over here, we've cut back here. Here we've not. So we're going to do that real quick just to remove that. Start at the ear and hairline. Are we matching up? We're getting close. Come back here. Actually, I need to be closer to that jawline right there. Okay, under that ear, make a quick indentation right there so you can cut that out. And bring that jawline right up to it and separate that sideburn and then ease that cut. We didn't do much on this side as far as the cheekbone, so right above the cheekbone, right below, I'm going to go in and I'm going to take out some of that skull. Right below the cheekbone, come out here, take out some of that skull. It makes the cheekbone stick out, and it gives you a really narrow chin, which is okay on this guy. He's looking okay. I'm going to trim a little bit back here at the back of the head so I can move everything the way I want it to. Look at that neck. Okay, we're going to force this big brow ridge right here, which is kind of harsh. I want to cut it back some, so I'm cutting in and up. What I'm doing is I'm removing what looks like a bony structure, which everybody has. Some of them are more pronounced and some of them are not. But all I did was move it back a little bit. And if you don't like the way that looks, come in here with another gouge and just cut across it. Make that deeper, and then you can make the front of it match. So all I'm doing is coming across his forehead. See how it looks like a ball cap? We don't want that. So we got his forehead. We'll take some of that off. I'm just going to go right across it. And then what we'll do is we'll soften it by carving that top of it off at an angle. Right in the middle, there's a slight separation for most of us between one eyebrow and the other. So right at the top of the bridge of the nose, I want to just go up and make that little separation. That means when we go to do the eyebrows, we've got an eyebrow point here and an eyebrow point here. We'll carve these away and we'll carve these away. We're gonna reshape that nose a little bit more, because now that we've done the rest of the face, we do the nose right above the nares, go in. Can't hold it way out here at arm's length. Go in, curve up. See how it shapes that outside of that nose? Same thing here. Nares go in, turn up. I'm going to remove those lines off the nose because they're distracting. It looks like the nose is bulging. So I'm just going to barely shave that off. And here as well. I'm liking that nose. I like the way it looks. Okay. So on your own time, you're going to clean up everything down here that you want to clean up. Because right now, I've got a bow tie that I really don't like very much because it didn't come out well on the top of this wood. The farther up I went, the drier it got. So I might have to play around with that. Do whatever you want to. Make a collar there, make it a rib neck shirt, something like that. But whatever you want to do, as far as a tie here, if you want suspenders and all that. I'm not going to bother with that today because it would take me a while to get that in there. It's just tedious work. But let's finish up this head. Head sticks out way back in the back. It's got a really pronounced back here. That enhances the look that I'm looking for with the skinny neck. So I'm going to go in here and take a little bit of wood off here at the bottom of where the neck and the shirt come in together, because I really want that neck to look just kind of really goofy. I'm looking for a goofy. This is probably one of the goofiest ones I've made look this way, but I might be able to give him a Adam's apple there in the front too. Okay, Knife, I want to round that harsh line right there on the chin. I just want to take it rounded a little bit more, because as sharp as that line is, I'm having a hard time seeing what I want to do with it. I want to just cut that sharp line off, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Looks a little bit more like natural. And so with my pencil, I got my center line. We've got him kind of a serious look, but he could still smile a little bit, and I'm going to give him a little smile. Out here on the edge of his mouth, I've got one little line out there on the edge of the mouth, and I'm going to put one over here on this other side about the same spot. So I've got two lines there for his mouth. What I'm going to do then is drop this mouth down right from the middle of each line, give him kind of a half smile. Not real big, but not bad either. He's like, I'm here. I'm supposed to take you out tonight. All right, so here's how I do mouths for the most part. I don't do them all this way, but I do a lot of them this way. I drew those two lines. There's one and there's another one. I want to take my knife and I want to go in about 1/8 of an inch. About half of that knife is above the line and about half the knife should be below the line. Do the same thing here. Right in the middle of that line, go straight in. And now I'm going to connect this line here and just go a straight stop cut all the way across from one corner of the mouth to the other. And then I'm turning him upside down and I'm going to take off just a little bit of that lip. I don't need much off. I'll take more off later, but I'm taking just enough to where it looks like his mouth is smiling. Okay, go to the corners and take off the corner above the mouth and below the mouth. Fairly deep. That intersection of those two cuts should be deep enough that there's a dark spot in there, almost a shadow. See that little shadow in there? I want to make that shadow on both sides. So I go here and I take off this corner and I take off this corner. And it's trying to split on me. Maybe we can get away with it. Maybe I'll just cut off a little bit of that slit. There we go. Okay, so one cut in, one cut from the top, one cut from the bottom. Make sure you leave that indentation way back there in the back that looks like it's a shadow back in there. Let me get rid of this little piece that wants to slice off on me. It's making me mad. There we go. Better. Take that lip, a little bit there. Take your knife and go from the top of the lip, not on the lip, but to the top of the lip, and curve up to the nose, because that has this upper jaw has a tilt to it that makes the lip pooch out a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to cut the bottom off at about a 45-degree angle, but I don't need to take off much. I'm just showing that the two lips are touching, and he's got a mouth. Now I'm going to have a bottom lip right here, which doesn't give me much of a chin until I'm done with it. So let me show you. Above, I don't want to go real close to that bottom lip. I'm just going to go in, curve out. 1, 2, 3. See how his lip kind of sticks out there? I can make it a little bit more with the knife. I can use another tool. I got the knife in my hand, so I'll use that one. Go in deeper. Going all the way to the bottom of the chin. Now I'm going to take this tool right here. Let's make sure this is the right one. It's not going to work. My other one, wherever it went, that one. So another gouge. And I'm just going to take a little bit of skin off under, a little bit of flesh under the chin, under the lip, sorry, under that lip. Okay. Trim off a little bit of those real harsh lines. They're real sharp. I don't want them, so give them a little bit of fleshy cuts. And then we're going to go underneath the chin and just take off those saw marks all the way back to the neck. Take off the lines you drew, saw marks, whatever you don't want there. If you need to, come in with another tool. Whatever tool fits under there to give you what you want. This big tool is great because I can go up, come back down, and it looks like his jaw's a little bit sunken. Hair is about all we got time left for, and then questions and whatever. V tool, follow that line around the back where the hair is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fairly good sized gouge and I'm going to make some big movements in his hair. I'm going in and out and in and out and in and out. Some of them are deep, some of them are shallow. I'm going to do the top part first because I want to go up. And then I'm going to go down because if I do it the opposite way, the hair is going to split off. Now, you can feel free to put all kinds of indentation in the hair. I don't usually do a lot of it, but I do some. Come back in here to make some random V-tool cuts. Find out where I keep laying my tools everywhere. So on that hair, I can come in here with cuts. Don't make them follow those lines all the way. Make them go in a lot of different ways. And just make the hair look irregular. Other than some cleanup and a little bit of cleanup right around in here, this fella is almost done. Any questions? Comments? Complaints? I'm all ears. Give me a minute to move my camera back a little bit more. There we go. That's where we're headed. Now, remember, this guy is on his first date. So he's trying to make an impression. And he's got his best clothes on. As best as they can be. He's got some features that make him... Oh, what was I doing? I was talking to somebody yesterday and they talked about how when they were a kid they made fun of their uncle and called him Eagle Nose. Because that's what he had. He had a really, really hawk pointed nose. And the fella realizes now that wasn't what he should have done, but when you're a kid you do stupid stuff. This guy has earned his fair share, or endured his fair share of ridicules and comments and such. And that's just the way he looks. That's life. Not everybody looks like Brad Pitt or Julia Roberts. And so this is what you're creating is your version of that. Maybe not to make fun of, maybe not to criticize, but maybe just to point out that, you know, not everybody looks like they could fit on the cover of Gentleman's Quarterly. But all of us deserve a date or two, and regardless of how we look. Tired of hearing me talk? It's your turn. All right, hopefully you've had some time to carve along with us. If not, cut yourself one of these out and carve it. I'd be glad to see it. I've got a Zoom Gallery Facebook page, Eric Owens Zoom Gallery, I think is what it's called. show it up there if you want. I'd be glad to look at it and offer you whatever criticisms and compliments you need. I hope you carve 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 and have fun with them.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks. Glad you could
That's
join us.
it's that's a fun carve.
Thank you. I'm
I
glad you
will
enjoy it.
I will try and send you a couple of pictures and welcome any comments or criticisms or help.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Also, don't forget, I've got I got extra rough or blanks if you want some. Go to my email and let me know what you want, and then we'll figure out how to take care of that from there.
All right.
Drop $1 or 2 or 3 or more into the Kofi fund, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
See you.
Hang on a second.